The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees as Ethan walked the familiar dirt path, his daughter skipping just a step ahead of him. The shortcut through the woods had always been their little ritual after school, a quiet pocket of time where the world slowed down and the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. Being a single father wasn't easy, between juggling 2 jobs, late-night homework help, and the constant worry of whether he was enough. Ethan often felt stretched thin. But here, watching his daughter laugh as she chased a drifting leaf, he could almost forget the struggles. Then everything changed. Just off the trail, a shape caught his eye, sharp against the fading light. At first he thought it was a trick of the shadows, but as he stepped closer, his breath caught. A young woman hung tied to a tree, her wrists bound cruelly with rope, her once crisp business suit torn and smeared with dirt. A cardboard sign dangled from her neck, scrawled in jagged black letters. "White man don't forgive." She was alive, her chest heaved in shallow, panicked breaths, her wide eyes wet with terror, but she was weakening fast. Ethan froze, his heart pounding so loudly it seemed to echo through the forest. His daughter's small hand gripped his arm, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Daddy." The world around him seemed to fall silent. Every choice he had ever made as a father had led to this moment, and in that instant, Ethan knew nothing would ever be the same again. Ethan's legs felt rooted to the ground, his mind torn between instinct and fear. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the faint whimper of the woman bound to the tree. He thought of the dangers. What if the people who did this were still close by, waiting? He had his daughter with him, the one person he couldn't afford to put at risk. The safest choice would be to turn around, walk away, and pretend they had seen nothing. His chest tightened at the thought, guilt already clawing at him even as his feet refused to move. Then he felt a tug at his sleeve. His daughter's wide eyes searched his face, filled with innocence yet fierce with certainty. "Daddy, we can't leave her," she whispered, her voice breaking under the weight of what she was witnessing. Her words struck him harder than any fear could. He realized in that instant that his daughter was watching, not just the scene before them, but him. The kind of man he chose to be in this moment would shape the kind of person she believed it was possible to become. Ethan drew a shaky breath, glancing back at the woman. Her lips moved as if forming silent pleas, her whole body trembling with exhaustion and despair. He saw not just a stranger, but someone's daughter, someone who had once been cared for, just as he cared for the little girl holding his hand. Fear still gripped him, but humanity pushed harder. He knew the decision was already made. Ethan stepped forward, every muscle tense, his senses sharpened by fear. His daughter stayed close, her small fingers clutching the edge of his jacket. The ropes around the woman's wrists were coarse and dug deep into her skin, leaving angry red marks. Her body sagged against the tree as if she had been fighting for hours and had nearly given up. Ethan's hands trembled as he reached for the knots, his voice low and steady, more for her comfort than his own. "It's okay, you're safe now. We'll get you out of this." The woman's eyes flickered with disbelief, then softened as tears welled. His daughter, too young to understand the cruelty but old enough to recognize pain, pulled a tissue from her little backpack and gently dabbed the woman's cheek. "It's going to be okay," she said with a child's certainty, her kindness so pure it made Ethan's throat tighten. Finally, with a sharp tug, the last knot came loose. The woman collapsed into Ethan's arms, her body limp, her breathing ragged. She tried to speak but only managed a whisper, why would you help me?" Ethan steadied her, meeting her eyes with quiet conviction. "Because no one deserves to be left alone like this," he said. His words hung in the air, simple yet undeniable, a truth that seemed to anchor her trembling spirit. For a fleeting moment, fear gave way to something stronger, compassion binding 3 strangers together in the heart of the woods. They moved slowly along the path, Ethan supporting the young woman's weight as his daughter walked on her other side, holding her hand as though that small gesture alone could keep her standing. The woman's breathing steadied, but her eyes still darted nervously at every sound. After a long silence, she finally spoke, her voice hoarse but edged with pride that refused to break. They wanted me to sign everything away, to give in to their lies. I wouldn't. So they made an example out of me. Ethan glanced at her, surprise flickering across his face. She looked so young, barely past 30, yet her words carried the weight of someone who had fought countless battles. Sign what away? He asked gently. Her lips pressed into a tight line. My company. My name. My integrity. I thought money and power were shields, but they turned out to be cages. I trusted the wrong people. Her eyes lowered, shame trembling at the edges of her voice. And when I needed help, no one came. Not until you. His daughter squeezed her fingers with a quiet wisdom that only children seem to carry. My daddy says being strong means being kind, she said softly. The woman stopped walking for a moment, her chest rising sharply as tears spilled down her cheeks. It was as though the simple truth she'd forgotten, buried under contracts, betrayals, and ambition, was being handed back to her by a child. The cold armor she had worn for years cracked, and she broke down, sobbing into the night air. For the first time in so long, she wasn't a CEO fighting for survival. She was just a human being, held together by the kindness of strangers. Weeks passed, and life slipped back into its usual rhythm for Ethan and his daughter, or so he thought. One crisp Saturday morning, a sleek black car pulled up outside their modest home. From it stepped the same young woman they had found in the woods, but she looked different now. Gone was the hardened mask of a corporate warrior, in its place was a softness, a humility that made her almost unrecognizable. She carried no entourage, no arrogance, just gratitude shining in her eyes. Ethan opened the door, surprised but smiling. His daughter darted past him, throwing her arms around the woman's waist. The woman knelt to return the embrace, her voice trembling. I didn't just want to thank you. I wanted to tell you that you saved more than my life. You saved who I was becoming. She spoke of how she had returned to her company, not with vengeance, but with a renewed purpose. To build something rooted in fairness and humanity rather than fear. I thought the world was only about power, she admitted, looking at Ethan with tears glistening, but you showed me that real strength is compassion. Ethan shook his head. We didn't do anything extraordinary. We just did what was right. The woman smiled through her tears and turned to his daughter. And you reminded me what innocence and hope look like. I'll carry that with me forever. As she drove away, Ethan's daughter slipped her small hand into his. He looked down at her and realized the truth, the world doesn't change through grand gestures of power, but through small acts of kindness, multiplied. In that moment, he felt a quiet certainty, humanity, at its best, still had a chance.